The following Conscious Consumer Network recording of a live broadcast is available to purchase in high definition at ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a CCN pledger. For €10 a month, you can have unlimited access to CCN high definition downloads at ethymarket.com. Ethymarket, the ethical marketplace for conscious consumers.
Hello, dear listeners and viewers. This is Desiree Rover with the Minority of One report on ConsciousConsumerNetwork.tv on May 17, 2015. And again, I have this wonderful guest, Lorraine Moret. Lorraine, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Desiree. And thank you, Biggie and Mel for doing this.
Yes, I second that. Yes, the last time we spoke, excuse me, then we were discussing chemtrails, but you, just before the show began, you tossed something into the arena, which is very interesting. So let's start with that, and that is vaccines, a fourth adult vaccination that is going to be mandated, or how is that? What is the betting story?
I've talked to people in New Zealand, Australia, Serbia, the United States, I believe in Canada also. This is an international network of power that is dictating to all countries what protocol they're going to follow in this global genocide. It's pretty obvious now, because these mandatory vaccine programs are in the legislatures, in the parliaments of many countries. And it's, God, why did we vaccinate our children now that we know what they're really doing? Mandatory for adults. So I began to really wonder what this mandatory adult vaccine program was. And I was also watching and hearing from people all over the world since maybe the beginning of the year or in the fall of 2014, a large increase in spraying in the chemtrails up in the air. It's very, very accelerated. And with that has been a suppression of reporting in the media, alternative media, blogs, and so forth on chemtrails. That issue is very taboo now. And so then maybe a week or two ago, I picked up a news story that Cuba was providing the vaccine for the mandatory vaccine programs. Now, Cuba, remember, Fidel Castro and his brother Raul are part of the Farnese family. They are the very top ancient Iranian bloodlines. These are Iranians that have ruled the world for at least 3,000 years. They created the Roman Empire, the Etruscan Empire, the Habsburg Empire, and they're still in charge of the world. And they love poisons. And everything about this unipolar New World Order rollout that the U.S. is so instrumental in pushing has the imprint, the fingerprint, the smell, the look, the feel of these Jesuit genocidal programs. And indeed, there's plenty of stuff, plenty of evidence now right out in the open that this is indeed what's happening. So the vaccine that Cuba now is providing for the mandatory adult global Jesuit vaccine program is for lung cancer. Lung cancer is primarily caused by ionizing radiation. And Desiree, being a health person, a health reporter, an investigator, researcher, I just want to tell you that lung cancer has increased 1,700 times. This is by 1993. Over what it was pre-man-made ionizing radiation in the environment. So that would be pre-1900 cancer rates for lung cancer, and this is in Cumbria, England, out of something like over 6,000 cases in the cancer registry there. Very, very, very few cases of lung cancer, very rare. And today, that number has more than increased 1,700 times, because now, since 1993, we've had other releases of large amounts of radiation. The largest, of course, is Fukushima in 2011, but we've just had a Chernobyl level accident in the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in the Ukraine.
Yes.
That was in November, the end of November 2014. We've just had a Chernobyl fire around the Chernobyl plant, and all this radiation is accumulated in leaves and detritus that the forest produces on the forest floor. It's a huge Kindle pile, and all of that piled up since Chernobyl in 1986, because the bacteria and the fungi and so forth that cause degradation or decomposition of plant material can't live in those high levels of radiation. So the plant material doesn't decay, and they've had huge, huge fires that started at the end of April. And they said the fires were out the next day. They had one helicopter for an area that was 10,000 acres.
Yeah, well, then you can easily say that.
I'm sorry, 10,000 hectares, which is 24,700 acres. I'm really sorry.
But if you have one helicopter only, then you can easily say there's no fire, because where you are, there might be no fire, but in the other part of that huge territory, yes.
Oh, no. The radiation levels spiked all over the United States. They're still spiking. And I know that Chernobyl fire is not out yet. You can't put out a fire like that in 10 days even.
No.
And they have no equipment to do it. They have 200 firefighters for 25,000 acres and one helicopter.
Wonderful.
And they're already, the day it happened, they were already talking about arson.
Figures. It fits the bill of what they are planning to do with us all. By the way, I found the Cuban vaccine. It's called Symavax.
Mm-hmm.
And it's available at the UK at the moment. It has been approved in Cuba and is used in hospitals over there. Trials are planned for other countries and are expected to start in the USA in late 2015 or early 2016. We need positive results from these trials before Symavax can become more widely available. Yeah, right. Creative bookkeeping. Cooking the books with these studies, and who is doing the studies? Oh yeah, that's the manufacturer. Okay, so what outcome can we expect? Right, it's safe and effective.
Well, I'd like to tell a story about why you cannot trust these government sources. I went to a very large breast cancer conference sponsored by the University of California at Berkeley, I believe the Lawrence Berkeley Lab, where the Manhattan Project started, and other agencies and institutions around the Bay Area. There were also government, the California Health Department and so forth were involved. And so there were at least 500 women there, and more than half of them were African Americans because they have much higher rates of breast cancer. In fact, it's almost the highest in the world because radioactive dairy products,
Exactly.
highest levels of radiation, are deliberately shipped into the African American and poor neighborhoods. And it's sold through the mom and pop grocery stores, and it's U.S. national policy. And I got Dr. Ernest Sternglass, I convinced him to write a paper on it because he's so widely respected all over the world on nuclear issues. And so I had a friend of mine with me, Bob Nichols, who's also a nuclear issue reporter. And we were in this breast cancer conference. And I had brought a pole with a map on it that a small group of scientists made that I worked with. And it was called the Baby Tooth Study, or the Tooth Fairy Project. And they put a map together. Dr. Jay Gould analyzed breast cancer rates all over the United States by county. And then he made a map of the counties that had the highest breast cancer rates in the US. Well, they were all within 100 miles of an operating nuclear reactor. So they were all around nuclear power plants, nuclear weapons laboratories, and nuclear dumps. So I had that map up on a pole, and I listened to the speakers one after another, and they were from Stanford University Hospital and the University of California Radiation Lab at Berkeley, and here and there and blah, blah, blah. And it was the biggest pile of cock and bull I have ever heard in my life. And so finally, they got to a woman from the Lawrence Berkeley lab. And she walked up to the podium. She said, "Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. I'm the mouse lady." And I looked at Bob and he looked at me and we said, "What's the mouse lady?" And she said, "Well, I study breast cancer in mice up at the Lawrence Berkeley lab." And she said, and we study tumors, breast tumors in mice, and on and on and on. And then later on in her talk, she said, "Well, I use ionizing radiation to cause breast cancer in mice because it's the only thing that causes breast cancer."
Bingo.
This is right in the middle of her talk. And so then she said, "Okay, we'll take questions now." And so I raised my hand and I stood up and I said, "See this map? This is where the highest incidence of breast cancer in the US is, and it's all within 100 miles of nuclear facilities." And I said, "Have you ever investigated ionizing radiation as a cause of breast cancer?" She said, "Oh no, we wouldn't do that," or something like that. And then Bob and I got chased out of that meeting, literally and physically chased out of that meeting. And this big African-American woman who was their bouncer or something chased us into an elevator and jumped in the elevator with us and chased us out of the building. I mean, physically.
Yeah. I can imagine that. Well, there was a coin that dropped with me because my father died in 1953, a bit more than 5 years after he came back from the Japanese prison camp in Indonesia. And now the coin drops that it didn't have to do with the camp. It did have to do with the Fukushima of that time.
And
at that time, yeah.
And they also did huge nuclear bomb tests, including hydrogen bomb tests for the first time in the Pacific. And that would, of course, contaminated Southeast Asia.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. Thank you, New World Order, whatever.
Yeah, the gifts keep coming,
Yeah.
but there's no way to turn them off.
Yeah, there's a cornucopia of misery coming our way. Yeah,
Yes.
yes. So
And
yeah,
and that that list from the NATO webpage, their publications in the life sciences and microbiology.
NATO, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, Desiree, I was in the laundromat next door to my house doing my laundry within the last 3 weeks. So that would be the spring of 2015. And there was a young couple there. He obviously was grad student age. And they were talking to each other, but I said, I think they're talking German, but I'm not sure. And so I said, hi, what language are you speaking and where are you from? And so we started talking. They were from Germany. She said Frankfurt. And then after a while, I said to him, well, what are you doing here? There are a lot of Germans coming over to study at the Lawrence Berkeley Lab, and they get fellowships and do research for 6 months and go back to Germany. And even Angela Merkel came over to tour the Berkeley and Lawrence Berkeley Lab facilities. And that's within the last year.
Oh,
So that was very strange. So I said to him, well, what are you doing here and what's your field of study? And he said, well, I'm sort of in kind of political opinion and doing things like surveying the population and the citizens about things that are happening that they might not like, or it's to get their opinions and everything. And I looked at him and I said, oh, well, that's interesting. Did you know about the NATO publications? They're all genocide papers about biological warfare, mind control, chemical poisoning, DNA altering. And I said, they're on the NATO website of publications in the life sciences. And I said, and all of them are written, almost all of them, by scientists in the countries of Eastern Europe. And that would be from Latvia, Lithuania, the Baltic states, down through the Ukraine to the north end of the Black Sea. And he looked at me and I said, they're genociding that whole region. And Germany has to be involved. Are you aware of that? And he just gulped and he just looked at me. He looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Yeah. And then, so I started talking to his wife again because I said, boy, he's sure upset about that. And then after a while, I turned to him again and I said, well, I'm leaving now, but what are your names? He didn't even want to tell me his first name.
Oh, wow.
So there are many, many dirty things that Germany is involved in. The Dutch are much, much, much more devious about hiding what they're involved in, but we know they're involved in the takedown of MH17 in the Ukraine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not surprised, by the way.
We know they're involved in Inmarsat because Inmarsat started in Holland and the military took it over. And
yeah, I know. I worked with Inmarsat.
You're the one who told me that.
Yeah.
And so we know that these European countries and the US and China and Russia, they're all involved in this global scheme. They're all playing different roles. And then the guys with the control and with the willpower, they're probably fighting things over in the back too. But what I know is they're trying to create a Hegelian dialect. In other words, two pretend enemies to start a third world war. Yeah. And Putin has been very, very clever about not getting sucked into the Ukrainian black hole. And now what's happening is there's a lot of diplomatic discussion and whatever they do, plea bargain with each other, I don't know, or trade stuff, but it's taking a new course, and it's we're just on the verge of another war starting up again between the militia in Novorossiya and the Ukrainian troops. But I think that Putin has finally put his foot down, and he said, if NATO gets any more involved in the countries that it's been messing around in, we're going in and we're breaking those countries up. There won't be any countries there.
Okay. Well, on the Dutch television, I normally don't watch the news because I know it's all sort of magic that they give you, but they are trying to paint a very black picture on Putin. But what they did is there has been an investigation, and now they know that it was a Russian book. It was called that thing that they shot up to get the plane down, because it had been, and it was all hearsay. They had spoken to people at the situation down there, and that is their proof that it was a Russian device, because it had been seen at the border on the Russian side, and then a bit later it was on the Ukrainian side, and a bull story. I mean, total crap. But what they are very deliberately trying to do here in the Netherlands is to paint Putin pitch black.
But what's happened, I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but both Poroshenko, the president of the Ukraine, said on television live on his own network that it was a Buk M1 that took that plane down. And the Ukraine is the only country that has the Buk M1. It's a modified version of the Russian Buk M, but the Buk M1 is the Ukrainian version, and it's unique to the Ukraine. The militia didn't have anything like that, and they had no way to launch anything like that at a plane, and they were busy shooting down the Ukrainian planes. They shot them all down in about 6 weeks. So now in this new iteration of this war going on, the Ukrainian troops have a lot of new equipment for European countries and the US, including big helicopters and jet fighters, but they're afraid to fly them over the war zone because they know they'll be shot down.
Yeah, but wasn't it so that Putin was flying nearby at the same time that the MH17 was taken down? And wasn't it the idea to take Putin out then?
No, it wasn't that idea at all. No. It's no accident that so many Dutch passengers were on that plane. It gave, I don't know how it gave Holland the investigation powers. Yeah. It should have been the Ukraine, but who would trust them either? So anyway, it ended up that all the evidence is in Holland now that they picked up, and they have control. But it's definitely been established because Yatsenyuk, the prime minister, also said publicly in the media that it was a Buk M1. And then the Berkut, the former internal police who are now fighting this illegal junta, they hacked into the intelligence headquarters, and they got letters from the top of the intelligence agency of the Ukraine describing the Buk M1 missile that hit that plane. And this is before there was any investigation, so how would they know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, but go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah, well, in the Netherlands, I smell a rat with what the government is trying to build in terms of a story towards the MH17, and they are going. Yeah, they are very teary-eyed about all the victims. Yes, it's bugger that these people died. Of course, it shouldn't have happened. But I cannot imagine that after so much time, because now they went back to the place of the accident and scraped some more bones and stuff from where they found them. And yeah, then again, we have these black limousines and a ritual to welcome them to Dutch soil and so on. And oh man, it's such a charade. It's such a play.
It's such a distraction from what should really be being investigated.
Yeah, exactly.
It also confirms their involvement.
And it confirms that the Dutch government has the DNA of everybody. And that is something that I don't hear anybody say out loud here. But they must have everybody's DNA, because how else can you identify the remains of people?
Well, they had it before the end of the 1990s. Dr. Kilde was talking about that, and she said...
Oh, Ronnie Kilde, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she was talking about the... that last decade of the that millennium, the 1990 to 2000, and that was the decade of the brain in research in the United States. Yeah. But it's also when they were introducing and integrating the EMF technologies. For instance, Northwest Airlines, they were hooked up with the federal government on probably the Department of Energy, because these technologies are developed at the nuclear weapons labs primarily. Mm-hmm. And they were introducing mind control and mind reading to the process of the travelers go through to order their tickets and pay for them on the internet or by phone. Then they drive to the airport, then they enter the airport, then they end up at the boarding gate after they check in and go through security, and then they get on the plane and leave. Well, Northwestern was the first airline in the US that used the mind control, mind reading program from the time a passenger called in or ordered a ticket over the internet. Then it went to a more intense level. They were tracked from the time they contacted the airline. Then they get into the physical area of the airport. A more intense mind reading program goes on. It's more intense once they go through baggage and security, and the most intense level is at the gate. So this program was being tested in the 1990s. And Kilde also talked about other programs. She didn't specifically describe in black and white letters what they were, but she said in the United States, the government has already done some kind of assessment of 98% of the population. And I believe it was DNA, which they can do remotely from satellites.
Yes, well, that is something interesting and not nice to know, basically. But what I saw the last time I was going by plane within Europe, someplace, I ordered the ticket on the internet, and I had only given my name, I think. And one of the reference numbers they gave to me to use at the gate to have your electronic ticket was my Dutch citizen number.
Yeah.
And I thought, shit, how can they know that?
Yeah. Because because what they've done in the 1990s, I was working on my my PhD in the geosciences, and I was at UC Berkeley taking classes for a semester. And it was during the period of Clinton and the internet and getting this all together. And it was when the internet was really, really, really fun. It was the Wild West and anything goes. And we just couldn't believe we had this great tool to just zoom all over everywhere. And so Clinton had all these hearings in Congress, and there were experts on the internet and telecommunications and net freedom and everything. And they were coming through Berkeley every week giving talks. And they explained how these huge piles of data or data files on individuals were formed. And it was, for instance, through computer sales in stores where you buy something with a credit card and your name is on it and a bank number and everything. So the government started collecting that kind of data, health data, insurance data, even the information on a person's pets and what veterinarian they go to, what vaccines their animals had. Everything now, library books, which you go in and check out in a library, that goes in the database. And Desiree, in the United States, I met this contractor, because I'm kind of a building contractor, and he was in trouble in the courts because he didn't have a valid license. It had lapsed or something. And he said to me, you know what those big data collections are for now? He said, my lawyer went into court with me and he said, oh, I went into the judge's chambers and he showed me your rap sheet. Okay, a rap sheet is all the data that a police department that they have on you. And he said, what did he have that for? I mean, the contractor wasn't in trouble for anything. He just said, what was that for? And he said, everything was on it, your pets, your veterinarian, everything. And he said, judges now make their decisions on the conviction and on the punishment based on that report, not on the incident that you're in the court dealing with.
That is what Patrick Wood calls flexible law.
It's asymmetric enforcement of the law.
Yeah, it's like ice skating when you can't do it.
Yeah, it's selective enforcement. So this is these are the small steps that are eroding our constitutional rights, including the adult mandatory vaccination program. So if they're doing this illegally, if it's so important that they can get away with it, and so there's a lot of collaboration in all sectors that have all been infiltrated and set up to promote these programs, then who's going to ensure that our constitutional rights are protected and enforced?
But do you still have a constitution? Because in Europe, I doubt very much whether we still have a Dutch constitution, because we are within this stupid EU, which is a criminal, satanic concoction.
And that's what they're doing now to Canada, the US, and Mexico. They're doing a big regional unification, just like they did with the EU.
Yeah.
And they're unifying the currency, the everything, and they're breaking countries, those three countries, up into regions like they did in Europe with administrators. There will not be votes and elections. This will be administered by people who are appointed, like CEOs, to run a region.
Mm-hmm. Well, I get in the chat the message that we don't have in Holland a constitution anymore, but that's not very well known. But it's my intuition telling me that no, it's gone. It must have been gone because the
Well,
things they do.
the EU has that ridiculous constitution that was 150 pages or something, and
160,000.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
something crazy. And that was the thing that Balkenende, as I call him, our prime minister of the time, he, which means about misery, he signed that without having read what he was going to sign. And in 2005, we had a referendum in which 52% of the Dutch people had said, no, we don't want any European constitution. And this was not a constitution anymore. It was something else.
administrative law.
Yeah, something like that. They had a different word for it. But, and the prime minister signed it without the Dutch people wanting him to do that in Lisbon. And he just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
And that's what they always do. And it drives me mad, I can tell you. Oh.
It's because we don't really have democracies. I mean, the United States is not a democracy, and it never has been. And what they're doing is putting on a show with constitutions and with elected leadership and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, right.
But the United States is not any different than the Russian mafia, the Japanese Yakuza mafia, the Italian mafia. It is a wealthy elite who are, a lot of them are psychopaths or unbalanced people, narcissists.
Unhinged.
Unhinged, right. And they stand on two legs and stay in power that way. And those two legs are the military and organized crime. So Shogun, that wonderful book about the Shogun period in Japan, Sho is the Japanese word for the Lord, the noble, and Gun is the Japanese word for the general. And it's because the general works for the lords, and we know what royal families and nobility are about. They live off of other people, the labor of other people.
Yeah, parasites.
Parasites, and they are destroying the world that we were born into. They're destroying the health, the global health of the environment, all living things, and of human beings. And they're doing it to reestablish their superiority, their supremacy, their hegemony, and they're doing it so that they stay on top. And this is decade after decade, century after century, and millennia after millennia. They've got it down to a formula. It's all templates. And so they put on this show of democracy to make people think, oh, they have jobs and they have money to spend and whatever, and they're healthy and their children are going to college. Well, that light bulb just got turned off.
Yeah.
And it's just that fast. They can give it to us and they can take it away from us anytime they want to. We don't need them running our lives and sucking the lifeblood and energy and the fruits of our lives working out of us with nothing in return. They don't share. They take.
Only,
and they kill. And they're ruthless, and they've been there a long time, and they know their business very well, but they're more of us.
And they act as if they're entitled to everything they do to us. But what is the solution? Is the solution that the 100th monkey should be awakened before it can flip the situation? How do we do that? I mean,
the situation has to be solved through communication and good information, reaching the people and empowering them. Then they know what to do. And one of the most important components is spirituality. And if you've never seen spirituality in warfare, You will understand it by following the Ukraine crisis of the separatists in the eastern part of the Ukraine, who refused to submit to the illegal junta in Kiev. And it's their spirituality, it's their tradition and traditions for thousands of years as the first equestrian warriors that are powering their resistance to a disorganized and corrupt but well-armed government that can't even win against them. So American tanks and jets and Polish pilots bombing the citizens in cities can't even stop the militia because they, within just a few weeks or less, they have been able to capture probably 50% of the Ukrainian equipment, and they blew up the rest of it. So this is what spirituality and warfare is really all about. And it's just taking a stand because it's the right thing to do for your family, for yourself, for your community, and for your country, and for the world now, because what's happening is affecting the whole world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And people have to become involved. They have to share information, even if it's leaning over the backyard fence. But we do still have the internet, and it's information, it's media. That's the most important way to share and pass on information and get new information. And that's what it requires. So we need to set up our own social networking, information flow, news flow networks. And the best way to learn about it is in Asian countries where the populations have been suppressed for over 1,000 years. And you can't believe what dense, tight, effective social networks they have right under the eyes of the government. It's impossible to stop them because they know how to do it now in stealth. And Americans have no idea. They're going to the slaughter now.
Yes. Well, Europeans as well, I'm afraid.
Well, at least Europeans have been through some world wars. They don't want a war in Ukraine. They don't even want Ukraine in the EU or NATO, and they know what a liability is, and it's about to default on its IMF loans, so then it's a failed state.
Yeah, and then we don't want that.
But the U.S. created that. The CIA did that.
Yeah.
In 1 year, they completely stripped and ruined that country. 1 year. That's how fast they can do it.
Yeah, well, look at Libya.
Look at Libya.
Yeah.
Look at Iraq.
Yes, these were basically countries that weren't very well liked by Israel.
Well,
Israel is a pivotal point in this whole story.
Well, Israel is the cover for the Jesuits. The Jesuits created Israel too. And now the Israelis are being rolled up. The Jesuits are through with them, and the Israeli Defense Forces have been doing carpet bombing with depleted uranium along the Gaza-Israel border when the winds were blowing all that radioactive smoke into Israel. It was not blowing the other way to blow it into Gaza, and they were only bombing on days when it was blowing the radiation into Israel. They also used DIME, D-I-M-E, in Gaza. That also blows into Israel. And DIME is a dense, inert metal explosive. It's a personnel bomb sort of thing. And it's a metal alloy of cobalt, copper, nickel, carbon, and some other metals sometimes. And that is put in all the depleted uranium bullets and bombs and everything. And when they explode, that vaporizes and becomes radioactive for about 2 weeks, 10 days or 2 weeks. So those metals are the core of proteins and protein forming in the body. And I put all of the references for the Armed Forces Biology Lab research paper on DIME. They were studies on rats. And I put all of the papers in the reference section, or the sources section, and I put them in chronological order. In other words, the oldest papers at the top and the newest papers at the bottom. And that way you can see directly the whole developmental stages for 20 years of developing that weapon. And one of the last papers published on it was titled End Point Desired. It said 100% tumor genesis and 100% death rates. And that alloy was developed and used in Yugoslavia, in Iraq, in Gaza, and it causes death, 100% tumor genesis. The cancer develops in 3 months.
Whoa.
And 100% death in 9 months.
Jeez.
And so these are the weapons in combination with the neutron bombs, the mini nukes that are battlefield nukes. Most of them are neutron bombs. And neutrons are very, very destructive biologically to the human body. And with neutron bombs, the radioactivity is gone in 10 days. But the whole population is exposed. But then the conquering army and military can come in, and they're not exposed to radiation if they wait 10 days.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that's what they used at the World Trade Center, because a specialist on air pollution working all over the world, would be Dr. Cahill at the UC Davis campus. He was asked privately to volunteer to do air monitoring of the World Trade Center, but he was told not to start it until 2 weeks after 9/11.
I see, because then it was clear.
It was to allow the radioactivity to disappear. And so they're using nuclear weapons, but covertly. They're using biological weapons, but covertly. Can you imagine making the metal ions radioactive that are the core for proteins in the body?
That is more than satanic. It's worse than satanic. There's no word for it.
That's where what they're doing in the whole nanoparticle project.
Oh, yeah.
It's all a Jesuit poison. Nanoparticles are dangerous and poisonous to biological systems for 3 reasons. 1, for their chemical effect. Number 2, and each isotope, radioactive isotope, has a different, each element has a different chemical effect. The second reason they're very dangerous is because they're radioactive. So they release energy that represents the energy regime, and in the case of plutonium and uranium, of supernovas. That's where uranium and plutonium are created in the universe. And so when you have energy released from the nucleus of an atom that was created in a supernova, you're releasing a huge amount of energy that represents that regime. And it destroys the body internally, cell function, organ function, all DNA function. It damages everything in the body. But the third effect is the most dangerous, and that is the nanoparticle effect, because nanoparticles are transmitters and receivers. In other words, every nanoparticle is an antenna. And these antennas, uranium especially, has a tremendous chemical affinity for phosphate structures, which are concentrated in the mitochondria in the DNA. And so the uranium goes into the body and floats around in the cells and sticks to the DNA, to that phosphate structure. And so now the whole global population is contaminated. Our bodies have uranium in them. Everyone does. It's completely circulated in 1 year. And so now they can transmit frequencies to those uranium particles that are receivers, and algorithms that tell the uranium how to alter the chromosomes. And they are redesigning the human race. They're redesigning humanity.
Transhumanism.
Transhumanism. And they're not redesigning it to the benefit of those who are being redesigned. They're turning them into submissive slaves with no ownership rights, no money, and if they won't work, their credit, their bank is on a satellite, will be turned off. Click. David Rockefeller described it exactly what they'll do. If they won't work for us, we just turn them off on the satellite, and they have no way to purchase anything.
That is crazy beyond words. And
It's also proof that these people are psychopaths. They're unbalanced. They're brain damaged. They're inbred. There are all kinds of problems with these people, and they have managed to survive for 3,000 years and find lots of helpers. The Zionists help them carry out their schemes. The Tajiks, who are what we call the Jews today, the ones who follow the Kabbalah and the Talmud, they are not true Jews, they're satanic.
Yes.
They were actually Tajik Iranian tribes that the Uzbek created a victim population out of. So they're the ones who get blamed for what the Jesuits at the top are really doing. And then it's the Zionists, it's the Bushes and the politicians and the industrialists who carry out these schemes.
So-called Christians, yeah,
right. Yeah, they're the biggest Christians, right? And these are horrible schemes against humanity. But those people are well rewarded. But when they're through with them, they roll them up and strip all their wealth. They take it back.
Yeah, because even our royalty is only a slave to that Jesuit bulwark, basically.
Absolutely. And
so they're very expendable.
And think of who was involved. It was Prince Philip, the Nazi prince from Germany, and it was Prince Bernhard. Who was Prince Philip's buddy, and he was also a Nazi prince from Germany.
Yes.
Married to the Queen of Royal Dutch Shell, actually the two queens, which is exactly in the area of the Ukraine. The Royal Dutch exploration areas and contracts are where MH17 was shot down.
Ah, that too. Oh,
yes.
Another connection.
Yes, and the war started over fracking. Royal Dutch Shell and Chevron were fracking in that part of, in Novorossiya, in the part of the eastern Ukraine where this war is going on. And the Cossacks and other Russian-speaking ethnic Russian Ukrainians did not want fracking. They didn't want their groundwater poisoned. And it's because they are completely focused on protecting their communities, their wives and children, their families. And they're wonderful, wonderful, really wonderful people. They take care of themselves and they take care of their communities.
Yeah.
And they're a good model. You're asking, what should people do? That is what keeps the tribe alive. It's tribal practices, tribal values, and always thinking about the next 7 generations. How will this affect the next 7 generations?
Yeah.
And they practice their beliefs, and their beliefs are to protect the future of the tribe.
Yes. And we in Holland have totally lost even the family feeling. So there is nothing to keep us together. We are loose sand. We are bits and pieces. We are easily being taken out.
Isolated.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And this is not the fault of the Dutch people. This is all
on purpose.
It's all done very covertly.
Yep.
And it's done to give the perpetrators at the top superiority and control of the majority of the people who are kept suppressed and at the bottom. And we are going into a dark age now. You're going to see the libraries disappear. You're going to see them. They're encroaching on the internet now. Well, they have been the whole time. And they are rolling out their unipolar agenda, which means one source for everything in the world. And that source is the Jesuits. There will be one global oil company. There will be one global, and they already own and control almost all the oil companies.
Yes.
There will be one supplier of, let's say, beef. There will be one supplier of milk. There will be one supplier of cheese, of lubricants for machines. And they're already doing that in the U.S. right now. Every time I go to the store, the food quality is poorer, and there's less choice, and the prices are higher.
Yes, and I came across the Club of the Isles. That is an unofficial club. At the head is Philip and Elizabeth, and everything is under the umbrella of this Club of the Isles. And it's shocking, really, what is happening. And I see the same thing in the stores. Food is worse every day and more toxic because they add God knows what into it. And it's amazing. And
well, what they're doing is they're creating one supplier, maybe with 5 different names, but it's the
same thing.
It's a caste system.
Yeah.
And it's very, very ugly, and they've had it before. And now in the United States, if you go to the hardware store, there are things you can't find anymore. So we've gone on a sort of a Soviet agenda, a Soviet viewpoint. Yeah. And so if we see things that we know are disappearing, we'll buy them when we see them. And maybe stockpile a few extras. And that's how people got through the Soviet era, the Soviet period. I went on expeditions through Russia then in the 1970s. And you go into a restaurant. I drove all over the Caucasus. I was collecting plants for Kew Gardens and in the British Museum, the first botanical collection in 150 years. And so we went places that tourists don't normally go. And we go into a restaurant and we sit there with the menus for an hour and a half, and no one would come and serve us. And all the waitresses were sitting over at a table gossiping.
Yeah.
And so finally someone, we'd wave to them, and finally somebody would come over, and it didn't matter what we ordered on the menu. Everybody got the same thing because that's all that was delivered that week too.
Borscht. Only borscht.
Yes.
Yeah. And paprika vodka.
And she'd sit there and write everything down that each of us ordered, and then we all got the same thing.
Go. Yeah. Well, what I have seen here in Holland is, in terms of clothing, a real woolen sweater, non-available.
Yeah.
in ordinary shops. Huh? I mean, you can go special places still.
You have to
What
go to
is-
you have to go to thrift stores and flea markets and buy used clothing, and then you get the good
Yeah.
quality.
Yes, but what I see is that everything that is offered is artificial material.
Yes.
And
Oil companies. It's from the oil companies.
exactly, yes, yeah. And it will not keep you warm, and it
Yeah.
will not protect you when you get wet and it's cold, like wool does and silk does. And I hate all that stuff. And basically, there was a day today where there were all these market stalls here.
Yes.
They were selling clothing and this and that and the other. But normally, the quality of clothing in a place like that is less than in shops. But today, I can see it. There's no difference anymore. It's
There's
all
no,
rose.
there's
It's
no
all
difference.
crap.
There's no difference anymore. I noticed this with shoes. 10 or 15 years ago, the Chinese made shoes started coming in. I don't buy a shoe unless it's all leather.
Yes.
Because you can't repair it properly. If you have an all leather shoe, you can wear them your whole life.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're much cheaper to buy actually in the overall life of the shoes than the cheap ones that are coming in from China.
I agree totally.
Yeah, plastic, they're not really comfortable. They don't last very long. You can't repair them.
Yes.
And they're expensive because they're style.
Oh yeah.
But
what sort of style? Oh, you look ridiculous in it.
But I want to tell you a story about these stalls of Chinese fabrics and clothes and everything. And I went to Myanmar in 2010, which is the new word for the new name of the old country called Burma.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to go because my grandfather had been the commander of supply for the China-Burma campaign in World War II. And he told me all these stories about driving with the British Army and General Stilwell, the American Army, in jeeps from India over the Mandalay, the Mandalay, the road to Mandalay, and then over the Himalayas, the back way into China, and they pushed the Japanese out of China. And that was the British and American armies together. And so I was on the back of this bicycle that had been turned into a rickshaw, and this guy was riding his bike, and the tires weren't very good, and it was sort of wrecked and everything, but he was a nice man. And I said, why are Myanmar people buying these cheap Chinese clothes, these artificial fabrics that are hanging from stalls on every street corner in Mandalay? Why are they wearing that when you have beautiful woven cloth and everything? And he stopped his bicycle and he said, I have a wife and 3 children. I'm happy if I make 75 cents a day because then I can feed my children and my family. That's all I want every day. And he had to rent that bike every day. And he turned around and he looked at me and he said, when the British invaded Myanmar or Burma or whatever it was then, he said, we wore silk.
Yes.
And that whole region, when you actually go and visit it and you see the temples and you talk to the people, that was a very, very advanced civilization. Those people were major traders. They were major bankers. They understand money. They understand trade. They understand health. They understand everything. They have everything they need. And as soon as the British showed up, as soon as those Dutch gunships, the British gunships, the Portuguese gunships, the American gunships show up, watch out, because your country's going to be completely stripped.
Yep. Yeah, that is what history teaches us. It's amazing, and it's saddening, very saddening. All
And
these,
then what they do is I wanted to see what these countries were like before the gunships arrived. And they were very advanced, very thriving portions of the Silk Road, huge contributors, huge economy, and all of that wealth that was created from peaceful trading where both sides win and benefit. And it's really a good way to not have all these wars. Wars just gobble up all the money, and the bankers end up with it. It's a way to vacuum the money out of the population. But all those years of peaceful trading accumulated over a tremendous amount of wealth and gold and everything over a 5,000-year period. And that's what the Emperor of Japan looted in World War II. That was one of the main reasons for World War II. And I can tell you that trillions of dollars in looted treasure ended up in the hands of the top Jesuits.
yeah,
They
of course.
just used the war and the Japanese emperor to vacuum all of that up. And who would have known about that tremendous amount of wealth better than the Central Asian tribes who made the finest silk that created the Silk Road?
Yeah.
So they were just going back and looting all of it. And looting destroying things does not create wealth. It's just plundering and stealing. To create wealth and to create intellectual health, to create new ideas of power. A society survives on the power of its ideas. And all of the practices we're seeing rolled out now are designed to kill that power, to kill the ability to make ideas. They're destroying all these societies now.
Yeah. Look at the educational system and the universities. Oh gosh, it's appalling. It's really appalling.
Right.
And what also is that they are looting the language.
That's right.
And when you have no real command of the language and can use many different words, many shades of meaning, then you cannot express yourself emotionally.
That's right.
And that is what creates crippled people. And I see that happening right now, right here.
Yes. What do you see in Holland? What do you see happening in Holland?
I gave a presentation on chemtrails, and I used an old Dutch word to explain the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And I could make a word joke with that.
Mm-hmm.
The sky, it's called zwerk, but if you take out the Z, you have werk, and that is work. So Satan at the sky with the Z in between. So it was Satan at work and Satan in the sky at the same time. And
my God.
Yeah. So, and then I asked the public, do you know what is het zwerk? And I had all these blank stares. And I said, okay, zwerk means het uitspansel, which is also a poetic expression for the sky.
Uh-huh.
The stuff that is stretched over us. So
Yes.
uitspansel. Yes. They didn't know that word either.
Oh my goodness. Well,
and I have more often that I use words that for me are totally normal. And then I get these blank stares. What are you talking about? And then I thought, oh my gosh. And I have experienced once very, very clearly how important it is and how deep the impact is if you cannot express yourself emotionally totally.
Well, it's what autism is.
Yes, well, I was in Australia, and the landlady I was staying with, she did a nasty trick on me, and it felt like she had broken my aura.
Mhm.
It was a vicious, vicious attack out of the blue, and I couldn't say anything. I was frozen, and so I left the room. And I came back later and I said to her, listen, this is something you did, and you don't do this again to me. And then she started talking to me, but as I had to speak about emotional issues, English is not my mother tongue.
Mhm.
So emotional issues come up in Dutch, and then I have to translate. So she beat me to every sentence.
Oh.
See, that is what I mean. And then you talk about two languages. But if it is your own language that you cannot express yourself fully to explain what you feel,
Mhm.
then you are a prisoner in your own body, something like that.
That is also just exactly what you described now is a technique that I see widely practiced around the University of California at Berkeley campus. And they're probably the lead campus in the United States on mind control. They're the University of California is the manager. They have the management contract since before World War II, even to build the nuclear weapons for the U.S. government. And so Berkeley has a very, very dark history, as well as being created by Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
So this is the secret society at Yale University that the Europeans controllers have used to funnel ideas and programs, Tavistock, MK Ultra, COINTELPRO, gang stalking. It's all coming into the United States and introduced in other countries, but it's coming from a central region, and it's coming through England, but it's actually coming from Austria.
Oh,
from
Austria.
Vienna,
I thought Germany.
from the Vienna school. Well, everything comes from Vienna. So it went through Germany into Holland and other areas of Europe and to the United States. But the U.S. gets it from Chatham House and Tavistock and from the British. And remember, the Anglo-American Permanent War Racketeering Syndicate is the biggest enemy of the people on this planet. But they work for the top Jesuits.
Yeah. And the top Jesuits, they on purpose teach us the wrong things, like the stuff of Freud and of Darwin and all that other crap. And it's on purpose. So we think we know how things work, and we don't. No. And I see how universities are institutions that train people in the wrong way.
Very, very, very dangerous. Universities are very dangerous now. And any parent should select very, very carefully where their child is going, their adult child, young adult. And I'm watching in the city of Berkeley exactly what you're talking about. These parents, when I went to UC Davis in the 60s, the tuition was $65 a year.
Yeah.
That's a national, it's a, this is a state university, and the land and everything was granted to the state to put a state university here. And the tuition now, it should be private, I mean, it should be free. Because the taxpayers are paying for it. But the tuition now is over $15,000 a year. The student loans that the students think they're getting them from the government at very low interest rates, the interest rates from these actual private institutions are greater than credit card interest. They start the day that you get the loan instead of 3 years after you graduate from university. They used to give you 3 years to pay it off, and you wouldn't have to pay any interest at all. And now when these students sign up for these private loans, college loans, their parents have to sign as backup responsibility on the loan. If the student doesn't pay it back, then the parents are liable for it. If neither the student nor the parents pay for it, the student's children that are still unborn are financially responsible for those loans, their compound interest. And Senator Dianne Feinstein, who is on the Intelligence Committee, she's the chair of it in Congress. Her husband is Dick Blum, Richard Blum. He's the CEO or the president of the Board of Regents of the University of California, and he's the sitting chair, and he has $750 million of his own money invested in his private student loans corporation.
Where's the bucket? Ugh.
So this is how our world is unfolding. It's how things are being privatized that should be public. They should be free. Anybody knows education creates jobs and money and opportunities. It improves a country for the most part, unless they're designing weapons of war. And over 55% of university funding now in some of the big campuses is coming from the Department of Defense for the science funding. So, and who benefits from the science? It's the bankers. All the weapons of mass destruction were created for the bankers. And if you've been paying attention, Desiree, and we've been talking a lot about it, you have been paying attention, the countries that are being targeted with radiation exposure, Fukushima exposure, Chernobyl's fire exposure, they are the ones who revolted against the international bankers. Iceland gets sprayed with Fukushima radiation almost every day. Greece, the Greek peninsula, the Macedonia and Greece, was really exposed after the November 27th explosion at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in the Ukraine. And that was a Chernobyl level event. Huge amounts of radiation were released, and the heaviest exposure I saw reported from a government monitor was over Greece.
Oh, God.
But of course, we got it here all over the U.S.
Yeah, eventually it gets everywhere.
And it's still burning because we're still having irregular, very high spikes. So those are air masses that are coming over from Asia, from Eastern Europe, from the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to go around back to the chemtrails again, the chemtrailing and the HAARP activity is working with that scheme. And I'm wondering how many nanoparticles are in chemtrails put on purpose.
Oh, it's a lot. It's in the patent for the HAARP, patent, one of the applications. There are 14 backbone key HAARP patents. And Dr. Bernard Eastland, who was a scientist for Atlantic Richfield, was instructed to develop something like HAARP. And what Atlantic Richfield wanted was a way to explore subsurface for mineral deposits. In other words, oil and gas is what they were interested in. And And so Bernard Eastland scribbled down on a pad of paper all the applications for his invention. And in the patent that I was reading, it was talking about shooting rockets with particulates in them, radioactive materials, into the ionosphere and the Van Allen belts, which make the Earth's magnetic field, and into other parts of the atmosphere in order to study the behavior of those particles in the different interacting energy fields. And we do have the patent details on our website, lorenmarais.info, and the patent details are in a section called HAARP Season. And you can sit and read the summaries of those key patents, and then you can go to the U.S. Patent Office and read the entire patent and look at all the diagrams if you're interested. And that's a great way to get really good information. The IEEE, the International
Society of Electronic and Electrical Engineers.
Yeah, Society of Electronic and Electrical Engineers is, they have a website, and you can read abstracts on the papers, and then you can go to a librarian or a library or a college campus, and you can download those scientific papers, but a lot of them are on the internet. And or you can read the abstracts and get a concept and start doing Google searches, and lots of information will come up from all kinds of sources you've never heard of. But it's really fun. It's like getting in a Maserati and there are no brakes, and you just push the pedal to the metal and
Yeah.
off on this adventure. And boy, within about a day, you've got tons of information, and you really do understand what is related to what, and you find more pieces, and you build a bigger picture, and it's really, really fun. Isn't it, Desiree?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's scary also, because what you find is awful, but yeah, the
But
right.
you know what? I want to know.
Me too. Yeah.
I want to know. You can't run away from it. It's chasing you.
Exactly. And that's how I went into the history of Western medicine.
Uh-huh.
SIN at the end, huh?
Yes.
And, and I was dumbfounded that it was all there. The treacherous lies by Edward Jenner and the crap by Louis Pasteur. And those are the two legs on which Western medicine is standing. I mean, it's impossible.
Well, it's because the sciences are very much controlled. For many decades, 20 physicists in the United States completely controlled science. And a lot of them were from the Vienna School, which is completely satanic.
Yeah.
The nuclear weapons came out of that.
Well, I once said on a conference that I was hosting, a medical conference, I said, well, Western medical science will go forward with the velocity of one professorial funeral at a time. And the room was like that. And I thought, yeah, this is what it is. I mean, a professor is a professor because he functions within the system. If he does not, he can go poof. He can go out. He's sent off.
But you see, if you look at indigenous medicine, natural medicine, and then you look at Western medicine, you compare it, and it's hard to do that in Western countries because they're so dominated by the Western medical model. But if you go to countries in Asia where the traditions of natural healing and Ayurvedic treatments and
beautiful.
Just the ancient knowledge from 5,000 years of Chinese civilization of health and welfare and energy flow, they have such a different concept in Asia. And it's from observing nature, and it's
Yes,
finding
and working with the body instead of against it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the main cause of illness is a foreign substance introduced into a body that causes cells to go off frequency. Our whole body is an electrical system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when your cells go off frequency, it causes illness. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that third effect, the nanoparticle effect, is the reason why. And these nanoparticles will get into the body. They're so tiny, they go right around the body's defenses. They hide in the cholesterol and the lipids, and they're carried in the blood into cells. And they cause the cells to go off function, to go off frequency. And so in the West, they just give you chemicals to take that are like a Band-Aid on the sore, but never heals the sore. It just hides the symptoms. But with natural medicine, with indigenous medicine, what they actually do is, from their knowledge of the power, the properties of tree bark or root bark on plants, certain plants, or steeping certain leaves in a kind of a tea and having that in the morning, or certain fruits or seeds, basically spices, are very, very, very nutritious for this reason. You can cure illnesses by just restoring the cells to their normal frequency. And the Eastern Europeans and the Russians have done that for a long time, just by transmitting radio waves, correct radio waves, frequencies into a diseased area. They cure cancer in organs and everything. And all it's doing is restoring the correct frequency. So we don't need to do as much surgery as we're doing now, but it makes money for surgeons. It makes money for hospitals. It makes money for insurance companies. But it very frequently, it does not cure the illness.
It does not, no. I am asked to give a presentation to a group of therapists about self-healing methods. And it's such fun to research that area. And I came across a book that is very intriguing. And you spoke about Russian healing. The Russians have gone in a totally different direction than the Western world.
Yes, they have.
They work with herbs, and they work with frequencies also. And now I have this book here by Grigory Grabovoi or whatever, and it's the reparation of the human organism by way of concentrating on numbers. And he has this book. I don't know whether you can see it. It's shiny.
Yes.
And I grabbed something.
What's the title of it? What's the title?
The title is in German. I have the German version because I don't speak Russian. But it's the reparation of the human organism by way of concentrating on numbers.
Oh.
And for every ache and pain and illness, he has a different 7, 8, or 9-digit number. For psychological defect, he has, for instance, 8885512.
Interesting.
And you meditate on that number, you sing it, you speak it, you put it on a paper in your bra, whatever you do with it, keep the energy of that number with you. And it will help the body to heal itself, to redress into the right frequency. And I found a drawing of the eye, and all the parts of the eye he names them, and he has given them a number. And that number is what resonates with that part of the body.
Mm-hmm.
It's about resonance.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I love this.
That's really interesting.
Very intriguing.
Yeah. And it leads to another topic. You might have an answer for me. What I've noticed is that once Homeland Security and FEMA moved into the San Francisco Bay Area at the end of 2013, their program started rolling out, and we call them the Jesuit Nazi, the Jesuit Gestapo. And they brought all of these, actually Janet Napolitano took over as president of the University of California, and she's running Homeland Security and FEMA out of the university headquarters in Oakland, California. So Homeland Security came in, and I started noticing that the intensity and the shades of colors were changing. And paintings in grocery stores, murals and stuff that were on the walls were all repainted in these New World Order colors. And when you look at them, they have no vibration. You don't get any connection to the colors, or in fact, you don't want to look at them. They shut you down. So there is definitely something to frequencies and color that...
Color is frequency, yes.
Yeah.
And also musical tones, colors, and frequencies are also in one thing.
Right. And musical tones, my daughter is a violinist, and music is so powerful. I also noticed this. I noticed this with violins and stringed instruments, but I also noticed that with Native Americans and Native people drumming and singing. And that's a meditation. That's a chant. That is touching your own Holy Spirit.
Yes.
That's touching the universe. It's opening you to beautiful things, beautiful energy, beautiful feelings. And that is what the New World Order wants to snuff out, stamp out. It's any spirituality, because spirituality is what makes you fight back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and what happened to the music since the 1950s is appalling. It is appalling.
Yes.
I mean, correct that they have now through the radio. It's noise. It's
just
noise. It has nothing to do with music.
Right.
I have worked with sound in sound healing, a tantric sound healing. There was a tantric master who came to Holland and who taught us how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very amazing. We would do that in groups of 10, 15 people. They would come to a certain place at an evening, and then not knowing each other. And we would sit around a person in the middle, and we would sing the Bija mantras. That is mantras that is one sound, like Harim and Karim and Sharim and Kalim. Of course, it's the most well-known. And what would happen was that we would sing these Bija mantras, but we would hear overtones and undertones, like the monks, the Tibetan monks were singing with us, and the angels were singing with us. And we were in this dome of sound, and it would become very hot also. Very warm. And then we would have a session of, say, quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. And then the person who was in the middle would say how he had traveled, what had been happening to him, and everybody would share. And then we would do the next round. And these people who came in, not knowing each other, they, at the end of the evening, needed 20 minutes to say goodbye to each other.
Oh,
Because it's so bonding, and it
yeah.
creates such love, such a
Yes.
loving environment
Yes.
with the warmth. It's
Yes.
amazing. So I'm looking forward to do that with the therapists also in June.
Very, very, very powerful. And almost
Yeah.
always when I'm traveling around the world and speaking in different countries, I carry poems from people in other areas of the world, and I read the poems. I carry them with me and share them. And it's a way to connect communities. And they're personal also. They're beautiful, they're real, they're humble, they're passionate, they're all kinds of things. And they're
Yeah.
very validating to everyone. And I also ask a native person to drum and to sing or to chant, and also to use the smoking herbs to purify the air.
Mhm.
And that opens people spiritually when I'm giving a talk on the very difficult issues that I talk about, and it's
Yes.
terrible news. But
Mhm.
when you're in your spirit, things don't hurt you. You're able to
Yeah.
deal with them in a way that's not emotional. It's you're back in logic and reasoning.
When you're at the soul level, you are whole,
Yeah.
no matter
You're
what your body does.
untouchable. You're untouchable. Nothing can attack you.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
so people should remember when facing these issues and these difficult times that we're living through, we will survive. Not everyone will survive, but the smart ones or the people who take precautions or find their own way through it will survive. And it's going to be people who are spiritually strong.
Yeah. Chris Griscom, she got very well known by, I forgot her name, doesn't matter, an American actress. Chris Griscom said, you need to up your frequency. And then when you are in a higher frequency, you can survive a lot more things than when you're down. And that is what medication and vaccination will do. It will bring you down.
Suppress that.
Yeah.
And it's in combination with the fluoride they're putting in the water.
Yeah.
People need to have reverse osmosis filters on their drinking water and their kitchen water.
Yes.
And we put one into our kitchen under the sink. It has a separate little tap.
Yeah,
and,
I have that too.
Desiree, within 8 hours, I could feel my brain function change. And suddenly it was brighter, more alert, more in focus. I could actually feel that change in my body.
Yeah. But what is very important also in terms of water is that you vitalize it. It's not only about the taking out of the chemicals and the other crap, because the vitalizing of water will override, so to speak, the frequencies of the substances that water has met on its way from wherever it is coming from to your tap. So, and that is what you can do very easily yourself by putting water into a carafe and then put your hands around it and giving love and gratitude to the water. And that is what Masaru Emoto showed.
Yes.
That is the most powerful message that you can give to water so that it can redress itself. Because if you drink water straight from the tap, energetically, it will be dead. So you degrade yourself again. So it's very important that you give it a stir like that, like a vortex, and you give the good message to it.
The Japanese have a lot of beliefs like that.
Yeah.
He's very, 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 very famous for his work with water.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that the person who taught me the most about science and radiation was one of the last Manhattan Project scientists, and his name is Marion Falk. He's in his 90s now, and he made the hydrogen bomb work for the US government by solving all the problems that no other scientist could solve. And it was like being with Santa Claus. We'd sit in his living room for 10 years, and I saw him frequently, and it was like being with Santa Claus. It was playing with science and ideas and having fun, and he taught me the philosophy, and he gave me self-confidence and all kinds of things. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. And he was talking about water to me one day. He used to say the most amazing things to me. One day he said, you know, we can build nuclear weapons and everything, but he said, we don't know what water is.
Exactly.
What is water? He said, no scientist can answer that yet.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many anomalies of water and so many forms of water that we don't understand, because it doesn't behave like just 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 molecule of oxygen.
No, it's very different.
Yeah.
And so these indigenous knowledge and these indigenous people and their practices and their social structures and everything are all built around observing nature. Yep. And we need to go back to that, because nature is our web of life.
Yeah.
We cannot be any healthier than the health of the environment. And look what the military and these insane bankers are doing to the environment. Look what Fukushima's done. It's killed a whole ocean.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
How can anyone think that's sane?
Yeah. Well, the mainstream media just don't talk about it, that the ocean is dead.
Not at all. It's completely covered up.
More of the insanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is more of the insanity. That's right. And yet, when Fukushima happened, Obama had already left the United States with his family, and he waited it out in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, yeah.
Suddenly went on a tour of Southern Hemisphere.
Such a courageous guy, huh? Yeah, right. With his Michael.
Yeah. Just the gutsy politician you want to put all your trust in, right?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there is no politician to be trusted ever.
Yeah, I think you're right.
No.
Yeah.
It is awful. Well, yeah, and as far as these chemtrails are, I think they have different stuff now they put in it, because I see sometimes something that looks like a contrail.
Yes, I saw that too.
Yet a little bit later there is this haze again.
Yes.
So, and the haze is constant. Hey? I mean, even if we have a day like we had last Monday, where you have a blue sky, if I put my hand in front of the sun, and I can see that there is a layer being lighted from the sun next to the sun, and that is not straight blue. It's hazy.
Yes, that's the poisons that they're spraying into the air. Yeah. And as their program intensifies, the applications and the appearance in the sky of how this material disperses is changing also. Now, what I've noticed here in the San Francisco Bay Area is we get huge weather fronts and rain clouds and everything from far out in the warmer regions of the Pacific. So these puffy clouds look like volcanoes, sort of, and they're full of water. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is spraying the chemtrails over the San Francisco Bay Area, and they're stalling this low altitude dirty, sort of misty, wispy cloud layer. And those puffy clouds are coming in over it, and they are parking these puffy clouds over Black communities, African American communities, and poor communities. And then they park the rain cloud over that general layer of chemicals, and they rain out with buckets of rain the chemicals and the pathogens that are in the chemtrails. And that's right directly into the neighborhoods they want to target and depopulate. And I have gotten staph every time I go outside without a hat on. I get staph pustules all along my hairline. I get styes in my eyes. I've never had styes. I've never had staph ever anywhere. And I went out to the mailbox to pick up the mail a year ago without shoes on. I was barefooted, and because it's California, right? Bikini weather. And I came back, and about a week later, I had circles of staph pustules on my feet.
Oh,
and then I got big black blisters, watery blisters on the bottom on the soles of my feet. And those took about 8 months to heal.
Jeez.
So they're doing all kinds of things with pathogens. I know that typhoid showed up in Oklahoma City in the middle of the winter. It's like 40 below there, 40 below zero. And isn't typhoid a tropical disease a lot of the time?
Where is it coming from?
And then we had measles outbreaks all over cities in California. And where did that come from? And it was always after these chemtrails were overhead and there was a rain. And then this is all in the first 3 months of this year, 2015. And then people in Vancouver, Canada, the San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, San Diego, South Dakota, Montreal in Canada, they all got what I call chemtrail flu at the same time. And we saw them laying those chemtrails that carried that flu all over North America.
Well, here too, because I have been stuck with a nasty cough that traveled up and down my throat and lungs for 2 months. I never have something like that. I mean, it's crazy. It's totally crazy.
Now, I have a suggestion. Some of these symptoms are transmitted by frequencies. They can also mimic the symptoms of certain diseases. And I had that same cough, and I got really tired of it. So I put my hands over my esophagus, and it stopped. So then I knew it was a frequency. So you should try that also.
Okay, yeah.
But you can make tea with ginger, dried ginger, or grated fresh ginger, and you can put whatever medicine you like into it. And I don't know what countries marijuana is legal in, but it is legal in some states of the United States. And marijuana tea is absolutely wonderful as a medicine for relieving aches and pains. And we have medical marijuana clinics all over California. It's absolutely legal here. You need a medical marijuana card that you can get from certain doctors they send you to. And then you can buy it at these clinics, or in the city of Berkeley, you can have 32 plants that you're growing marijuana in your own yard, and it's 100% legal. So marijuana is used, cannabis is used all over the world by the elderly to mitigate the pain of arthritis, People with AIDS and with cancer use it to mitigate pain because it's really, really effective. If you have trouble sleeping at night, just drink a cup of marijuana tea and you sleep like a baby and you wake up completely refreshed in the morning.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I recommend that as an herbal remedy, but there are other things too. I don't recommend that you do it if it's illegal where you are living.
Hmm. Yeah. I use oregano oil. That's
Uh-huh.
rather oof, but it works. It's very good.
Essential oils are extremely important in
Yes.
healing because they have unique frequencies that restore certain parts of the body and cells to the proper cell function
And
frequency.
these very strong oils, I put them under the soles of my feet. I'm not ingesting them. I put them under the soles of my feet, and that works wonders. That's
And
very
it goes
good.
through the skin. That's wonderful, right?
To
Right
the whole
in
system. Yeah.
the whole bloodstream. That's great.
Yeah.
So essential oils are really good. I'm talking about pain. There's a lot of pain being induced in the general population now through the frequencies. And there are papers I've read, U.S. Air Force papers, describing how they were using frequencies to cause fibromyalgia, which is chronic pain. Marijuana tea takes care of that in an instant. If you lay on a bio mat, it's a mat that is manufactured to transmit infrared, and aches and pains disappear within 5 seconds of laying on that pad. And it has adjustable temperatures and also timer on it. And you can buy it so that it fits in a seat. You can take it into your office and then take it home and sleep on it at night. If you have sick animals, they love the biomat. They love it, even if they're not sick. You'll see them sneak over and spend an hour on it once a day because it heals them. It makes them feel good and relaxed. And animals are their own doctors also.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We need to be our own doctors. So there are all kinds of remedies and they're all around us. You just have to experiment a little bit, share your information, listen to programs that provide this information. And what you eat is the most important thing you do, what you eat and what you drink. And because of the global levels of fission products from Fukushima and the Chernobyl fires and other explosions at the Ukrainian nuclear power plants, there was another one today. The fission products are just everywhere. So we need to eat highly colored vegetables and fruit. Avoid dairy products. No dairy products.
No. What I noticed the other day, that is the chemtrails, they can smell like hell.
Yes.
I came into my garden yesterday evening and I thought, oh God, I'm going inside again immediately.
Yes.
There was a smell, it was horrendous.
Yes. What did it smell like?
Yeah, I can't really describe it. It's not like an open sewer, but worse than that.
So it had a biological smell.
Yeah, a bit, but not completely biological. It was something funny going on with it, and I have smelled it before. Other years also.
They're just putting a lot of really weird stuff in, and they're very, very covert about doing the spraying, which indicates that it's really bad, and they don't want people to know about it.
Exactly. Yes.
Can you imagine the funds that are required that we're spending to do these chemical spraying programs over most of this planet?
So no wonder that they have to steal from us.
That's why they're stealing from us.
Yeah.
And that wealth that they stole from humanity represents the peaceful trading and the creation of wealth they could never dream of in the scheme and the conniving and the plundering and stealing and thieving that they're doing now.
Yeah,
It's the dark side of humanity. It's the dark energy. But we know from the yin and the yang, which is an ancient Asian Chinese symbol, is that after the dark passes, the light returns. And after the light passes, the dark returns. So it's a dynamic that runs the whole universe.
yeah. And the way the powers that should not be are acting out right now, I conclude that many of us have awoken so that they need to put their foot down more firmly. So basically, we can see it as a compliment. It's a bit crooked.
And people need to be watching very carefully what's happening in the Ukraine and what's happening between Putin, who represents Russia, and he doesn't make all the decisions. You know, he has to answer to people too. So what is happening in this shadow boxing, in this struggle being set up, or it's a perspective that's being set up of this Hegelian dialectic between the East and West? Well, what's really happening is the Jesuits are collapsing the Western economy. They're through with it. They'll drain all the money, and they're pumping a new economy, a whole new econocentric region, which is Russia. China's part of it also, but Russia is the anchor. And Putin is already making deals and agreements and collaboration with Peru, with Argentina, with Brazil. And this whole attack in the Ukraine, it's a covert attack on Russia by the U.S. and it's all powered by the Jesuits. They've taken over the U.S. And it's to attack Russia. It's to get to those Siberian oil and gas fields and then ultimately the Arctic plains Russia holds. And that's the Jesuits trying to get control of that whole region and all those oil and gas deposits. And Russia has 25% of the world's gas deposits in the world, and they have very high quality, very pure gas and oil. And there's no way any country, any other oil or gas sources anywhere in the world can compete with the very low prices also that that Russia is selling it at to the European Union, to the European countries. And they just can't buy it from the U.S., from the tar sands people, Cheney and the Bushes. They don't want to buy it from the Rockefellers, Chevron, and so forth. So Europe is really has no choice but to buy the Russian oil and gas. But it's the best price, the best deal, a trusted partner. They always deliver. And I think that Russia, I think these sanctions are coming to an end because the European countries realize it's costing them more in billions of dollars in lost trade revenue every year, and it's not costing the U.S. anything. And so what they're doing is they're paying the freight, the cost of U.S. foreign policy, which has turned into a nightmare and done everything negative for the European Union.
Yes, they stepped in it, hook, line, and sinker. They took it. It was so stupid when it happened. Yes, we have one more minute, Lauren. The 2 hours are all gone already. We did it again.
We did it again. So I want to make a couple of statements. Number one, people should fight these mandatory adult vaccinations with tooth and nails. Because once they do that, they can come and do anything. They can cut your arms and legs off. They can harvest your organs while you're still alive. They can do anything they want to. And it's this slow erosion and incursion into the taking over the ownership and the control of our bodies. They're taking that away from us, any
Yes.
self-determination at all. And they're not jabbing us with needles for any good reasons at all. So no to adult vaccinations, and also people should be supporting the Ukrainian resistance movement in any way they can. There are donation buttons on their websites. There are militia places where that you can wire money or transfer it. And everyone should be supporting these people because they're fighting the only fight now against this new world order takeover, and they've done a really, really, really good job. We need to support them. It's our war too.
Yes, I agree totally. Okay, we are done with our time. Lorraine, I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for the sharing of all your wisdom and knowledge. Thank you so much. And give my love to Lawrence, who is in the background there.
Yeah.
Hello, Desiree.
Hi, helping you out sometimes. And Biggie and Mel, also thank you from the network.
And my thank you too.
Yeah, we should come on camera.
Yeah.
Well, Biggie is not going to be on camera, and not for us sometimes. For us only for us. Okay, thank you both, and listeners and viewers, thank you too. This was the Minority of One report of May 17, 2015. I'm Desiree Rover from the Netherlands. Bye-bye.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential, with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform being made available to use at no cost to the broadcaster. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live streamed. Catch up on missed or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN High Definition downloads. You can now purchase a high definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high-definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows, which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN free of corporate sponsorship and advertising, CCN has launched the Pledge 300 campaign. This is a realistic goal with the hopes of securing a minimum of 300 people who will each pledge €10 a month. With this number, we can continue to grow and operate and potentially expand into a second foreign language channel. Without it, CCN will simply not be able to function without succumbing to corporate sponsorship and advertising. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and... If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential, with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform being made available to use at no cost to the broadcaster. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live streamed. Catch up on this or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN High Definition Downloads. You can now purchase a high definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high-definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN free of corporate sponsorship and advertising, CCN has launched the Pledge 300 campaign. This is a realistic goal with the hopes of securing a minimum of 300 people who will each pledge €10 a month. With this number, we can continue to grow and operate and potentially expand into a second foreign language channel. Without it, CCN will simply not be able to function without succumbing to corporate sponsorship and advertising. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.